Now, back to earnings and prime focus in particular. We're pleased to have Namit Malhotra, founder, executive chairman of Prime Focus, joining us live on the show today. Mr. Malhotra, good afternoon. Many thanks for your time here on NDTV. We'll, of course, present the numbers on screen. But if you had to characterize the quarterly performance for Prime Focus, what, according to you, are the highlights?
I think thanks for having me on the show. I think one of the key aspects of what you're seeing in the quarter is fundamentally the play out of our business and the strategy that we laid out a couple of years ago around hitting north of 25% EBITDA across our operations, and I think you're seeing that promise sort of play out. It sort of signifies that not only have we been able to scale a business that in the last 3 years has grown from an annual revenue base of about 800 crores to about almost 2200 crores this year, with EBITDAs for the year being at about 500 crores. This obviously has been achieved establishing across our global capabilities by expanding businesses in the West and making sure there's meaningful output, probably the one of its kind coming out of India, which I think is what is showing significant improvement in our overall performance.
Okay, you've also acknowledged that FY17 is a transformation year, and I wanted you to really pick up the elements of transformation which have played out in FY17.
Yeah, so I think clearly there have been a few events that have transpired through the year. So we've obviously looked at right at the beginning of the year through this fiscal, we've had sort of the monetization of some of our non-core assets, from selling out the real estate that we owned back in Los Angeles at the beginning of the year, followed by a significant exit of an asset or an investment that we inherited through the merger with the Reliance MediaWorks side. We've been able to bring in sort of significant amount of cash and grow the revenue and the order book equally at the same time. So it's sort of seen the growth of the group, augmented by the fact that we've been able to deleverage at one level, bring in probably the largest orders that we've ever had in our history, and the play out of the India model that I think substantially supports the overall ability for the business to keep growing forward on a more sustainable basis.
Can you share or at least give us a flavor of the kind of work that you're doing for big clients that you've signed on?
So we obviously currently have clearly achieved a tier 1 position as far as the Hollywood marketplace is concerned. And if I could name a few films like Beauty and the Beast, King Kong, the Fate of the Furious, that's Fast and the Furious 8, The Mummy Returns, Dunkirk, and a host of other movies Transformers, which is the third time in a row for us. So we're obviously working on the key tentpole franchise part of the business in Hollywood, and we're working across multiple studios, and the size and scope of our work, from providing integrated services on the visual effects and the 3D standpoint, added with like I said earlier, that the fact that we can now produce that absolute high-end work from an Indian context, I think is starting to really play this out well for us. And the order book position is almost north of 250 million just on our creative services side, and as a group, we're at about 450 million, the strongest and the largest it's ever been.
Okay, take your point on everything that you've said about FY17, in a sense, resetting Prime Focus. So if you had to reflect a little bit on the challenges, if any, you anticipate in FY18, what would you flag off?
I think FY18, frankly, at this point is more about continuing to execute on the scope and scale that we've laid out in terms of building out and executing upon that the project pipeline that we've got ahead of us. I think it's safe to say that the significant headwinds through the M&A that happened a few years ago, the integration challenges and the rollout of the overall business has never been better. So while there are always going to be certain headwinds, I think we've never been in a better position to tackle that head on.
Okay, and again, a more recent deal that was signed with Turner Latin America, for example. I mean, is that in a sense new territory, or just the kind of scale that you've referred to in our conversation today?
So I think, just like on the creative service side, our technology business, which is Prime Focus Technologies, continues to grow and scale on the back of our product capabilities that again have been, completely built out in India. And while we have pushed a technology-led services model as well, I think it's heartening to see the fact that our technology platforms is now being adopted as a key driver of interest from our international customers. And Turner LATAM certainly is one such example of how that part of our business is starting to take shape, which again has certain absolutely inorganic opportunities in terms of revenue growth and the scale of what that business can provide going into the future, because of it being primarily technology and product enabled and not just a services quotient.
I still haven't got my head around in terms of, we've talked about the fact that you're on track to scale up, but in this particular year, going forward here on, I mean, what is happening on the ground at Prime Focus which really brings home the point that you're scaling up, just in terms of headcount, in terms of hands on deck? Can you give me a sense of just how differently you're poised this year compared to the last year?
I think first of all, as I mentioned earlier, there is the strength in our order book today is significantly greater than it's ever been. So that obviously bodes well for us to know exactly what kind of talent and what kind of outcome we are sort of planning for. In addition to that, we've spent the last couple of years in really building out a certain amount of capacity so that we can start to, have the ability to execute. So going back 12 months, the movies that I just played out from an execution and delivery standpoint coming out of India, that baseline of output or scale did not exist. We already have that done and delivered, and that is sort of now paving the way for therefore more of the same to be done in, call it, a bigger volumetric standpoint, and therefore margin expansion on the back of that. So that's sort of the seeds that were sown a couple of years ago in terms of all the R&D, the training, the development of our talent and capability is now starting to deliver in terms of real numbers and output.
Namit Malhotra, I have to say, and this is an aside from the quarterly review or even the outlook for the next year, whenever we are talking about Prime Focus or to Prime Focus, there's this strong desire to come and actually watch you at work because, of course, we get to see the end product on the screens. Many thanks for your time today. Good talking to you, and perhaps, we're going to sort of, follow up on that request to watch Prime Focus at work. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks a lot, and you're welcome to come by anytime. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, after the break, we're going to actually stay a bit with the technology space, albeit of a different nature. Jagdish